Alrighty, I am live. Let me see if I can bring you
Decide.
on here.
Oh, there we go. Hey!
Yay! Don't ask me why I have my beautiful background in there, but maybe I should change that.
It works. That's fine.
You
Let's
think it's
roll with it.
Let's just roll with it, baby. All right, we are live and we're super excited because today we would like to bring you the topic of imposter syndrome. And this is something that pretty much everybody at some point has to deal with. Um, and so, as we're talking, we want you to know that we are glad that you're here with us. I'll tell you a little bit about me, and I'll have Debbie introduce herself and then we'll get into our topic. So, I am Coach Pamsky. I work with women who are coming from dysfunctional homes and situations. I help them overcome the effects of those situations so that they can change the way they live the rest of their life story. And so I am the owner of Pamsky's Place, which is a virtual life learning center that promotes the six pillars of self care through Christian values. So, Debbie, do you want to introduce yourself?
Sure. Well, my name is Debbie Dowling-Waba, and I help women to get back to the things they love doing by ditching their stress and anxiety. I've gone through anxiety through most of my adult life, and I just want to help others and serve others so that they can realize that they can manage their anxiety and work through it rather than let it stop them.
Yay. Yes. So good. So good. I am very honored to have you with me as a co host in these lives that we're doing. And, or I'm your co host at some point. So, as we start out this topic, we want to talk a little bit about what is imposter syndrome. I love the picture of like a woman with the masquerade mask on because I think that is such a good indicator of what being an imposter is. And here's the deal with it. Imposter syndrome is something that you feel when you are doing something or a part of something, or you're walking through life and you do not feel like you're as good as other people, or you're afraid that because you don't feel as good as other people, you're afraid other people are going to find you out. And it's not a good place to be.
Mhm.
Now, here's the truth about imposter syndrome. We don't always have to feel that way. We can have areas in our life where we feel really good and we feel like we're going along and we're achieving, that what we're doing is a really good job. But then when we're in certain circumstances or certain things happen, it can trigger us, and that imposter feeling starts to come out in us, and it's like, whoa, what is going on here? So don't be mistaken in thinking that you have to feel like an imposter 100% of the time, every day, every second of the day. It can be something that is triggered in you to happen,
Mhm.
because I think some people think, oh, I don't have imposter syndrome. And I have a really good friend that yesterday when I was talking to her, she took my assessment, my quiz. So just so y'all know, I do have a quiz that you can take to help you find out what your imposter profile is. So it's the profile that you probably struggle with the most. You might identify with each one of them. And there's five of them. And the sixth one is all of them put together. And that's not uncommon. And again, it's because we will feel these at different times in our lives, different moments. So my friend, what she said was she had taken my quiz, and the first time she wasn't even she was honest. I love her. She was honest. She said, I wasn't even sure I was going to take it because I don't struggle with imposter syndrome, is what she said. And as she's talking, I'm keeping this straight face and I'm thinking, okay. Um, and she said, but then after she took it, some of the questions struck her. And she was like, well, maybe I do have imposter syndrome. So she took it again. second time, right? And then she went to an event and it came up the same. Then she went to an event. And when she went to this event, there were certain people at this event that I can't remember if she said maybe they had a higher status, like money wise than her, or just more knowledge, or I'm not sure what was going on at this event. But when she went, all of a sudden she was like, oh, this is imposter syndrome. Like she felt it, she felt lesser than, and she struggled with it. And so she told me, she said, I'm going to take your quiz a third time. And this time I'm really going to pay attention to the questions. It's like, okay, okay. And that's the way it goes sometimes. Sometimes we think we're fine, and then we find ourselves in these positions that we're like, oh my goodness, like, what is this and where is it coming from? And so, as we're looking at imposter syndrome, your question might be, well, what are they? What are the profiles of imposter syndrome? And that's a really good question. So let's just look at that first so that you can, I really want you to take the quiz because the questions in the quiz will help identify that for you. But as I talk through these, I want you to think about which one are you and when. And if
Mhm.
you say all of them, the first thing I want you to think of is you're not a failure because that's what we tend to do. I
Mhm.
almost don't even I really question, should I make this quiz? Because when you take things like this, it sometimes can make you feel like there's something wrong with you, that it can cause shame sometimes. And if you know me, you know I'm not that kind of person. I'm the opposite. I'm the one that's cheering you on and helping you get over the shame and all that. And so um, I definitely don't want something like a quiz to do that to you. But and Debbie will, Debbie, you can chime in on this. One of the things that we're really big about is awareness,
Yes.
because you can't do anything about anything if you're not aware, right, Debbie?
That is correct. And, I did take that quiz. And one thing I have to say is, that changed my mindset was I don't view my failures as failures. I view them as an opportunity to learn. And I think once you take that mindset of, okay, I really didn't fail, but what was my lesson? And you take those opportunities, it really can help you to get past that feeling of insecurity or that you're not good enough, because you're taking the lessons and say, okay, well, this failure was because I had a lesson I needed to learn. Take that lesson and take your failure, try again, and you will get to, the next step.
Absolutely. Absolutely. My one of my big sayings is nothing changes unless you change it.
Right.
Unless and you can't, like Debbie said, you can't change it if you don't know that it exists. And so for you to be able to look at that and say, okay, you know what? So this is the truth. I'm really big about getting into the truth about things. This is the truth about what's going on with me. So let's go through what are the imposter syndrome profiles. One of them is the perfectionist, the one who wants to get it all done, all right, and it needs to be perfect. It needs to be done a certain way, and if it's not done that way, then and what's interesting, I'll tell you right now, the percentage of people who've been taking the quiz, guess what their result was? The perfectionist.
Yes. I
Yeah.
can relate to that.
I can relate to it too. I'm like, yes. And I'm going to be, Debbie and I are going to just be really real with you. Like when we resonate with things, we're going to tell you, hey, this is us. We're not going to
Mhm.
hide it from you because we do that for two reasons. One, we have no shame in it. Like it is what it is for us. And, there was a time where both of us, it was shameful because of our own brokenness. But,
Yes.
we've broken out of that. And There is no shame for us. So that's reason number one. But reason number two is we want you to be able to connect with us. Like we want you to know that you are not the only one because we know what that feels like. We've been there and we don't want you to be there. So when we're frank and real with you, that's why we want you to know, hey, we get it. Like we've been there or we are there because you know what? We're always a work in progress. Like it's never perfection. Ha, the perfectionist.
Yeah,
So,
exactly. And I think for me, it's always like I feel like I'm not going to do something unless I can do it perfectly. And let's be honest, how many things are you going to do in your life perfectly? You're
yeah,
not. And that's why I say take your failures and turn them into lessons of what you may or may not need to learn. So I think that all plays into the perspective. It's all about your perspective and your how you perceive yourself.
it really is. And you want to hear something funny? I'm sitting here with this microphone. Y'all gonna laugh at this. And this is real stuff, right? I have this beautiful professional microphone, right? I have my earpiece in, right? Talking about perfection. Okay, here it goes. Guess what? I'm not hearing, it just dawned on me. I'm not hearing anything through my earpiece. And my lights, well, now they are semi on. My lights on my microphone weren't on. And I'm like, I'm playing the part, but I'm not really doing it. What?
Well, in all truth, since we're being transparent right now, I'm helping my friends out with their dog, and of course, like timing, I thought we timed it right, but we didn't, and I'm sitting outside now. I had to move myself because she had to poop. So that's why you see me moving around because she's out here doing her business. But it's like really every day you go like clockwork, and I took her out and she went like clockwork. But of course today she's like, no, Debbie, I'm going to play games with you.
Oh, there you go. Now you might notice a difference in,
Yes,
yeah,
yes.
isn't that something? The lights turned on. I guess maybe it just wasn't totally connected. All righty. So,
Next
so
time I'll
we,
have to connect my microphone. I have one.
yes, yes. Um, so we have the perfectionist, we have the soloist. The soloist is someone who does everything themselves. They don't ask for help. And there's different reasons for that. Part of it is that they don't feel like anybody else can do it as good as they can or as 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 good as them or as fast as them or what was the word I wanted? Proficient?
Yes,
That
perfect.
was the word I wanted.
And
I
I have a share on this one, so keep going.
Okay. And so with a soloist, they do everything themselves. And yet, they will be the first ones to say, "Why do I always have to be the one to do this? Why won't anybody help me?" And a lot of times it's because most people around them know they're the soloist and they kind of stay at arm's length because they know if they come in to try to do something that they may not do it to the standards that the soloist wants it done at. So then they end up just and what's sad about it and I so relate to this. In my business, I do a lot of things myself. I'm getting much better at delegating and giving things out, but it is exhausting. Like, if you're exhausted all the time, you might want to consider the fact that your imposter profile might be soloist. So, Debbie, how can you relate to this one?
Well, first of all, I think for me, I'm a soloist, not just because of, I feel like I can do everything perfect, but also because I think that for me, it's more about like I don't want to bother anybody. I feel like if
Mhm.
I can't do it, I don't want to bother anybody. But again, I'm going to come back with something that changed my whole perspective on that. And I was told, well, so you like helping people, right? Yes. So that's your way of basically giving to them and blessing them. And I said, well, yeah. And they said, well, think about when you don't ask for help and someone doesn't get to help you, you're taking that blessing of helping you away from them. Their
Oh,
gift to
yes.
you as their gift to you. So since then, again, that was how I changed my mindset on that, that asking for help, if someone's willing to help me, that's their gift to me. And I need to honor that just like they honor my help. So,
Yes. Yeah, that's so incredibly important to remember. Absolutely, absolutely. Well, then we also have the expert. The expert feels that they know things, but then they get upset with themselves when they don't know something. You know, they're the ones that they'll come in, that they'll have all this information, but then they're the ones that will beat themselves up when something arises and they don't have the information. They don't know the answer,
mhm,
and then they feel stupid, and it's like, "Oh, man." Can you see how it's there's a lot of, um, things that we want in these profiles,
mhm,
but when they are our identity, when they're um, our expectation, then you can see the downfall. You can see where we start to cave into that pit of, um, self-loathing, and it's tough. It's tough. I have a story. So, if you ask me why I even talk on this topic, or why would I spend the time to make a quiz, or, why is this so important? It's because most people feel this. Some feel it 98% of the time that they're breathing, that they're walking around, that their eyes are open. And some people, they may only feel it 25% of the time. I was at an event. Debbie was there with me. We went to an event called EYA, and that's Embrace Your Ambition. Amazing event. You
absolutely.
wanna know more
Can't wait
about
for
it?
the next one.
Yeah, I was gonna say, you wanna know more about it, you make sure you get one of us, because, it's an amazing, amazing event, okay? And at that event, we did an activity where they had a sensei come in, and um, he had boards that we were to karate chop. I've always wanted to do that. I'm thinking, "Yes, I finally get to do this." And he gave a talk beforehand, and he talked about, some things that we can say and do that hinder us from being able to achieve,
Mhm,
whether it's our goals, our dreams, whatever it is. And so on one side of the board, we were to write what our limiting belief is. And then on the other side, we were supposed to write what an affirmation about, that same topic,
mhm.
only that would, something that we can say
Yes.
when these imposter feelings come in, when we start experiencing the doubt and the things that try to drive us away from our goals and our dreams. And so here we are, and I'm like, okay, so I everybody who plays a game with me knows that, like, I just like, I get into it. I'm a
Mhm,
little competitive, and my family would be like, "A little," but I'm good-natured about it. Like, I'm not someone that I have to win and I'm going to kill you to do it, I'm not, and I'm not that kind of winner. I'm more, "Why am I playing the game if I don't wanna win?" But to have fun too. I've really had to scale that back some. So I can be competitive, and I can be very competitive with myself. And so I'm watching people karate chop their boards, and I'm thinking, I'm not kidding. The thought crossed my mind, "Hey, what if what if I can't do it? What if I go to do it and it doesn't break?" And I'm like, "Okay, get that thought out of your head, like, you're defeating this whole purpose of this activity." And so I get up there, and we do like a practice, get ourselves ready for it, and then and then we karate chopped the board. But here was the interesting thing. Before we actually karate chopped our board, there was 5 people doing this at the same time,
Mhm.
and then the next 5 and the next 5. Well, we had to state what our limiting belief was. Across the board, haha, across the board, everyone in that room, their statement had to do with imposter syndrome.
Yeah.
Every single one of them. And I'm telling you, that room was filled with,
Yep.
social media people, big influences, big speakers, big successful in their business, successful in everything they do, like,
Mhm.
the amazing, amazing people, and I'm standing there in awe because 2 of them were standing right beside me, and one of them said, "Why me?" And what was interesting was and this is a male, and what was interesting was way across the room, who they were nowhere near each other.
Mhm.
On his board, guess what he had written? "Why me? Like,
It's
I'm a nobody."
crazy.
Right? Like, it blew me away.
Mhm.
And I had already done a workshop on imposter syndrome before this event, but I just felt like it was one of those eye openers
Yep.
of we all deal with it. We all deal with it,
Mhm.
And it's like, man, it's important. This is a very important topic. And so if you have a comment, if you're watching this live, you've got a question or a comment, put it in. And if we can't see it now, we will make sure that we get to it
Absolutely.
because the questions you have and the comments that you have are important to us. And we will get back to you on your comments. So as we're going through this, Debbie, um, what do you think causes imposter syndrome? Like, if you were look at yourself,
Mhm.
okay, and what do you feel like causes your imposter syndrome?
Well, for me, I know for sure it's my lack of confidence and belief in myself because I've been made to feel that way. So getting
Mm,
through that and trying to figure out a way that I can have a different conversation with myself over different things.
yes.
And I can use the example of when I started my journey helping people with anxiety, I had somebody ask me, "Well, what qualifies you to do that?"
Ah,
And this is where I knew my growth was happening because I answered with, well, maybe it's my bachelor's degree in psychology and also that the majority of my adult life I've had anxiety. So who better to teach on anxiety than somebody that has lived it?
absolutely, absolutely. You know, head knowledge, book knowledge, it's great, but there's nothing better than experience because, the two combined together makes a phenomenal formula.
Absolutely.
And if you asked me, those are the people that I'm gonna go to. Those are the people I did go to because I wanted to make sure that well, 1, I needed them to understand me.
Right.
If you've never been through something, do you really you can imagine it, but you really don't know what that feels like. And so to have someone who's actually been through it makes and is rising up. Now, if they're stuck in it, that would be different.
Hmm.
That would be a different ballgame because if they're stuck in it, well, then they're probably not someone you wanna go to because they haven't they haven't been taking the steps. They don't have to be totally through something because like I said, we live in a fallen world. Like this is not heaven, guys. So we're going to be dealing with things here until we do get to heaven. And so we want to be able to find people that are at least a couple steps ahead of you,
Hmm.
that they've got some experience under their belt. that what they're talking about, they know what they're talking about because they've tried and it's true, and now they can give it to you.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, that definitely great point. Well, some of that what so you said, some of what you've experienced has caused some of the root causes of your imposter syndrome, correct?
Yes. Yes.
Okay, yeah. And that's definitely that was something I did wanna talk about is, sometimes the question is, well, where does this even come from? Like, why do I have it? Well, Debbie and I are not really big why people. We don't like to ask why. So we always turn that around. And how about we ask what?
Yes.
What happened
Hmm.
that caused this? And part of that is your early development, the way you grew up, the people that were your caregivers. I know, some people say, well, can we just stop bashing our parents? Hey, I'm not here to bash parents. But there is truth in that, you can have really good parents. I've got women that I'm working with that they had really good parents. And it wasn't so much that the parents did anything wrong, it was how things were interpreted by the
And per-
child
and perceived. Hmm.
and perceived. And so it's not a parent bashing thing. Yes, there are people like myself who grew up in a home that was dysfunctional, and it was not structured like it could have been, and so there was a lot of challenges. And did that cause, there is a cause and effect. Did that cause some things and affect me? Yes. Absolutely. And so I can say the same thing that there's some things in my childhood that definitely um, planted the seed of imposter syndrome. We also have culture factors, where you grow up, your environment. If you're in a um, wealthier neighborhood than some who are not, that can have different effects on you. If you're the one that's coming from a lower income neighborhood, or if you're from a different country, or there's a lot of factors in this. Personality traits. Now this I could talk all day about
Yeah.
because I have what's called the motivational gift test, okay? And what it does is a motivational gift. Now, I'm a Christian, so I always come at things from a Christian view. But with a motivational gift, it is something that God has given you. It's a gift and it motivates you. Well, we're not going to get into that a whole lot now because we're not talking about that. But what I do want to talk about is that one of the motivational gifts is mercy. And a mercy feels people's feelings. Like everything they do is filtered through emotions. And so, because of that, most empaths are going to be a mercy. Okay. The reason I bring this up is because if you are someone that is highly sensitive, and you may have heard these words and you're like, wait, why do you have to be so sensitive? Well, let me tell you what, if you're a mercy, that is your natural gift and
Hmm.
that's your superpower.
Yep.
Okay. But when we're talking about imposter syndrome, what can happen is if you're super sensitive, it's hard for you almost it's harder for you not to have an imposter syndrome because you do take things in and you can take things personal. My friend the other day, the same friend who took my quiz, now going to be third time. I love that. Um, she said, I would imagine that empaths, people who are highly sensitive, I would imagine that it's harder for them to overcome imposter syndrome.
Yes, I agree 100% because I am an empath. And if
Yes.
I'm in a room full of people, I can feel the energy. And
Yes.
sometimes I have to remove myself because the energy isn't good, and I've learned how to do that because then it takes away from my energy, and then I have to spend time kind of recovering from it. So I've just learned take myself out of this equation immediately, and then I kind of save myself.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah, and that's what and that yeah, and I give a lot of good tips, like, I am an advocate
Mhm.
for empaths, highly sensitive people, mercies. I am. And the reason I am, I'm not as much my gifting is not mercy. Mine's encourager. However, my mercy is high. But the re and that's partially why I'm sensitive or a advocate, but mostly it's because I live in a home with all mercies, all highly sensitive, all empaths. And so I've had to learn how to navigate because I'm not as much. So when I say something, it can sound a little rough. And and I've watched them. And if you're an empath, if you're highly sensitive, tell me if you don't relate to this. People assume what you're saying. People overtalk you.
Mhm.
I really think that you're the most misunderstood people in all the earth. I
Yeah.
do, and part of that is because, 1, you won't fight for the table, like and when you do and someone's over talking you, you'll just so if you get 2 strong people at a table, it's hard for you guys to really get out what you say, and here's the other thing that happens to you is what's in your head doesn't come out of your mouth the way it's in your
Mhm.
head.
Yeah.
So and then you're misunderstood, and so, like, I'm the person at the table that I do 2 things. 1, I will be the one that will say because I watch. I'm a people watcher,
Mhm.
and I will watch, and if I see someone who I know is an empath, a mercy, highly sensitive, if I see that they're wanting to say something,
Yeah.
I will open up the table to them. I will say, when you got strong people and they're talking, 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 "Hey, Debbie would like to say something."
Mhm.
And so Debbie says something, and maybe Debbie can't get it out of her head, out of her mouth the way she has it in her head.
All the time.
Yeah, and I can tell when that happens because there's a certain look people get,
Mhm.
and what will quickly happen is the stronger people at the table verbally will start assuming they know what she's saying, and they will start talking like they know what she meant, when in fact, I'm sitting there, that's not what she meant at all. So then I will interject again, and I'll say, "I think what Debbie was saying was," and I'll restate it, and I'll look at her and say, "Is that what you were saying?" And
Yeah.
she'll say, "Yes."
Mhm.
That's how I'm an advocate. Like, I'm the one that I'm cheering you guys on. I'm the one giving you the affirmations and the, "Come on, you can do it," because I've watched the people in my house struggle as empaths. Okay, that's a rabbit trail. I know it is, but let's bring it back now to imposter syndrome. When
Mhm.
it is true that if you are I'm bringing this up because I want you to understand you're not broken. You're not a hot mess, as some people might say. It just is that your makeup is just gonna take you a little bit more to rise up out of the pit, okay? It is. It's gonna take a little more, this is why you need a support system. Debbie and I, man, you're gonna
Absolutely.
hear us, right, Debbie?
Yes.
I mean, you're gonna hear us say this a lot. You need a support system,
100%.
and you might be sitting in a room all by yourself right now thinking, "I don't have anybody. I don't have anybody." Then what I'm gonna say to you is, go find them.
Yes.
Go find them. It
Mhm.
has to be important to you enough for you to go find them. Pray about it. Ask God to bring these people into your life. The whole reason that this wonderful woman is sitting beside me in this live is because I pray, God, I want people that I line up with. I want people who have the same core values as me. I want people who are going in the same direction. I want people that, like, we can talk and not have to pretend.
Right.
Imposter syndrome, right? Like,
Yes.
I didn't want to live in my imposter syndrome when I'm with people. I wanted to be able to be me and then
Mhm.
love me for who I am, imperfect, with all of my imperfections.
I like to say I'm perfectly imperfect, work in progress.
Exactly. And that's exactly what we are. And so are you.
Mm.
And so if you're sitting in that room all by yourself, and trust me, I know what that's like.
Yep.
The first thing that probably needs to be addressed, and this might be a little hard thing to hear, but get out of your victim mentality.
Mhm.
Like, if you've got that victim mentality going on with, "Oh, woe's me, this is where I am." Yeah, you need to grieve what you're going through and stuff, but that victim mentality isn't gonna help you. You're gonna have to rise up out of it, even if it's just long enough to go find your support system, because once you find your support system, they will encourage you and help you, and next thing you know, you don't have that victim mentality anymore because
Yeah,
it
no.
doesn't serve you.
And the longer you stay there, the it stays to be just gets muckier and muckier. So the longer you stay in
Yep.
that, it's harder to get out of. So the best advice, like Pam said, is go out and find who it is that will be your support system and lean on those people and make sure that, they're trusted, that you can tell them how you feel. They're gonna tell you good or bad, they're gonna let you know, because we don't want the cheerleaders that everything is perfect and rah rah rah, when really you need to have somebody say to you, "You know what? You might wanna really change this or change that." And then you have the decision to make that choice, but at least they have the honesty to say that to you.
Exactly, exactly. And so when we're looking at this, it again, if you don't change anything, nothing's gonna change, and we can't change it for you.
Right.
We cannot
No,
change it for you. You
no.
have to want to change it yourself. I have a no more program, and N stands for now, like right now. Because if you don't make that choice now, if you keep waiting till tomorrow, I've done it more
Mhm.
than once.
Tomorrow
And if
never
you
comes.
tomorrow never
Good.
comes, and then you just put it off again and you make all these excuses. Get up, get on your knees and start praying. Start getting out there and looking where, and it doesn't even have to be outside your home. If you don't want to leave your home, get on the internet. If you're watching this, you're on the internet.
Mhm. Mhm.
So, yes, and the reason this is so important is because when we talk about imposter syndrome, these things that Debbie and I are giving you, if you don't do them, you stay right where you are and you get the same results
Yep.
every time. And it does get worse.
Yes.
It does get worse. And I know it's all about getting out of your comfort zone. But I can tell you, Debbie and I both would still be in the muck if we didn't get out of the comfort zone. Every choice you make, it's the raw reality
Mhm.
and the truth. Every step that you take, you're going to have to push yourself through that fear of the unknown. That's what we're afraid of the most.
Yes. And it was something I heard this morning, was take your anxiety and turn it into gratitude and be thankful you have the opportunities that you have. And yes, you're going to have the feelings of anxiety, but in reality, anxiety and excitement feel the same to your body. So you have to just
Yep.
learn to be grateful in the moments, and the anxiety, get over it.
Yeah, and it doesn't mean, please understand, we are not saying that there's just like this magical thing that you can do and
No.
poof, it's all gone. It is a process.
Yes.
And it can be a long process. But one of the biggest things is what is your why? Like why would you want to even step out of your comfort zone? Because we hear it all the time in business. We hear it when we're setting goals. But you know what? There's a lot of truth in it. And I was just talking to someone the other day, one of my clients, and I said, "What is your why?" And she gave me her why and I said, I don't think that's a big enough why for you because it's not doing it's not pulling you
Mhm.
through that fear.
Right.
So that tells me your why is not big enough. Like it's too easy for you to say, "Yeah, another day."
Mhm.
The why has to be big enough. And as we were talking, she realized that if she doesn't make that choice to step out of her comfort zone, she might be forced to, and it
Yes.
might not feel very good,
Yeah. It's
and
true.
and I can tell you, I have been there. I have sat in the muck and it got worse. Here's the crazy thing. I didn't want to be there. I didn't. I told myself I didn't wanna be there. The problem was I didn't want out bad enough
Yeah.
until it got bad, and one of my situations got real bad, and it forced I mean, I guess I could have still stayed in that position, in that situation, but it was bad enough that the fear of the consequences of it was scary, and that
Mhm.
scared me. That was like,
Yeah.
"Okay, you know what?" Because sometimes it's not just about us. Sometimes it's about other people.
Yeah.
Sometimes we have other people we need to take care of, and if we don't do, Debbie and I are big about self-care.
Yes.
And, when we talk about self-care, we're not just talking about a nice bubbly bath. Oh yeah, that could be part of it, but there's so much more to it. 6 pillars.
Yes.
And so just know that now is the time. Now, don't wait. Don't sit in that dark room and be isolated because the
Mhm.
longer you do that, the deeper it gets and the harder it is to get out,
Yes.
So, okay. So another factor can be whether you're a female or a male. The statistics
Mm.
say that women actually suffer with imposter syndrome more than men. I, I'm I'm not surprised at that in one way, but I do want no, I don't work with men. Some of my programs I do invite men in, but like when I do group coaching and stuff like that, I don't work with men.
Mhm.
But I will tell you that I think for men, it's hard because of pride.
Pride. Mhm.
Yeah, because
And ego.
they were raised with the belief that it is unmanly to cry and you stuff all your emotions, you don't show any of them. And so for them, that imposter part is trying to keep everything in check and they're strong and they can handle anything and so they suffer with it too. They do. But let's go to the women because we're women.
Yeah.
Um, I do have to say because I've been working with women for over 20 years now, it's like I see it every time that low self-worth, that not good enough, can't be enough, can't do enough really plays in for most women. And like I said, you have your immediate healing that you need. And then you have that journey, that healing journey. But even when you've gone through like the deepest healing part, because when you hear me talk, I had someone say, I said something about, well, when I went through my deep healing, they said, well, you're always learning. You're always, and I said, yes, you're right. I am. And then thank God I am. But when I talk about my deep healing, I'm talking about when I was I was in so much denial that I didn't see how bad it was.
Yeah.
And then whenever I started seeing reality, you talk about being at the bottom of the pit. That's how I felt. I wanted to take my life. I was talking about taking my life. I was planning to take my life. And if it wasn't for God interceding, I wouldn't be here right now. We wouldn't even be having this. That's what I'm talking about when I say that deep healing. And for women, I know that they often have to go through the deepest healing. And then as they're moving and navigating on their journey on the path that God's got them on, there's going to be times, there's going to be things that show up, and it does not, and I need you to hear this. It does not, when that happens, when you're on that road, that path, and something triggers you, it does not
Mhm.
mean that you haven't had healing. It does not mean that you're way back here again. It does not mean that. I hear it all the time with my clients and the women I'm working with. Something will trigger them and they'll be like, "Oh, then I didn't really heal." No, it doesn't mean that at all. It just means that there's some things that might need taken care of. It just means that you need to be more aware of what triggers you.
Yes.
And maybe there's just some easy things that can be done that can help with that. I know, Debbie, we and I know this isn't really our topic today, triggers, but imposter syndrome, when we talk about imposter syndrome, one of the reasons that it happens is because we do get triggered. Something in
Absolutely.
the past happened, and here we are as adults, and there it is. So what is something, give us one thing that you feel is important when it comes to triggers.
I think that if you have triggers, one important thing to do is recognize it and explore why is that still triggering you? What
Mhm.
is the root of that? And once you can get to the root of what that trigger is and you can heal from it, it definitely helps you to move forward. So you really have to take a deep dive though and be really honest with yourself, and it's hard for us to be honest with ourselves. So we have to realize that the hardest person to be honest with is ourselves. But when you
Yes,
take the time and you dive deep into what it is exactly that is the trigger for you, and you explore it and face it and admit it, that's half the battle right there, and then you can heal from it.
absolutely, absolutely, yes, yes. So one of the other, root causes is maybe where you work, your workplace, what your job is, what the environment might be like. Are you an entrepreneur? Are you the CEO of a company? That definitely can be a root cause because depending on your position, you may have high expectations of yourself, or
Mhm.
somebody else might have high expectations. Like we're talking unrealistic expectations.
Yes.
We all know we have our job descriptions. There are expectations of your job, things that you do need to do, but sometimes it can be that it's just unrealistic.
Mhm.
And sometimes it can be your own view and your own perspective of things. One of the things that I find a lot is that because you've been hurt in the past, you don't trust people, and or you have low self-worth, and then you're in this job position. Say you rose up the ladder and now you're CEO, and all of a sudden you're like, what happened to me? Because you just feel so consumed with distrust in yourself, in other people, and it very well could be that you possibly didn't heal from something, and there's just some things that need worked on. And so in order to hide all that, see, the problem is that we have to live with ourselves. We know what goes on inside of here.
Yes.
And so people out there may not see it, but we see it. And then what do? We start beating ourselves up. We start saying that we are fraud. And the craziest thing is that there's people out there, just like the event that I told you. Every single person in that room, if we picked one person, okay, and everybody else in the room went around and said what they see in this person, I can guarantee you that what they were all saying was good stuff, and
Mhm.
yet this person
Didn't believe it.
didn't believe it. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, so sad, so hard.
It
And you know
is.
what? We wanna live free. We want peace. Like, every single one of my clients, I'll ask them, "What do you want more than anything?" And they'll say, "Peace." It's like, "Okay, let's do it."
Yeah.
Let's take those steps we need to take. It doesn't mean you're gonna have peace 100% of the time, but you sure can have it a whole lot more than what you got right now. And so the last one is new challenges. Wow, yeah, new challenges can be, right?
Yes.
Right, yeah, because, hopefully you're always leveling up. I mean,
Mhm.
I'm just hoping that you are. And at each new level, there's gonna be challenges. That's how we grow. There was a time where I used to say this all the time, "Why does it have to happen to me? Like, why is this happening to me? Why?" And I got stuck in that victim mentality again, and it's like, "Pam, if you're gonna grow, you need to expect these challenges because that's how you grow. Like, you want the challenges. Stop and think about if you were climbing a mountain, each obstacle that you've got to get past, like the trees, the rocks, when you get to the top of that mountain, how good would it feel?
Right.
That's what this is like. It's like
Right.
you're going to have those challenges because it makes you stronger and it makes you wiser. And hopefully, you're living this life in a fashion that you want to help people, no matter
Mhm.
what that looks like. It doesn't have to be the way Debbie and I do it. It
Mhm.
can be at your job, just having a conversation with someone at lunchtime, or it can be sending cards out to people, or it can be all kinds of ways. But if you don't have that view of wanting to help other people, you're going to get stuck because really, we're not here for ourselves.
Right.
We're not here for ourselves. And if we are allowing ourselves to get stuck, how many people are going to not receive what they should from you because
Mhm.
you're not overcoming those obstacles? So,
Yeah.
challenges are good.
And when you talk about even just walking down the street, you don't know how if you just smile at somebody or say hello, you don't know how that's going to change them because maybe they were having a bad morning, but your smile just brightened their day or your hello made them
Oh,
realize I'm seen, I'm heard. And Barbara Majeski said this a long time ago in Clubhouse and I loved it. Life doesn't happen to us, it happens for us. And I think
mm.
about that because I think of all the things that have happened and they didn't really when I put it into that perspective, it really didn't happen to me. It happened for me because I wouldn't be where I am now if it didn't happen. So,
So true, so true. I know, Walt McKinley says that too, the one that wrote, Monsters in My House.
yeah,
He in his book, he talks about that where it's just like, it didn't happen to me, it happened for me.
yeah,
But when you're going through stuff, it does feel like it's happening to
yes,
until you switch that perspective. So true, and that's the difference between being the victim and overcoming that victim mentality,
yeah,
and it really is, and it's in my bold acronym that I do. It's in my no more. You've got to break out of that, and we can't do it for you. There was a time where I used to say, I would love to have a shot that I could just inject in women's arms so that they would get it, like they would overcome that victim mentality and the imposter syndrome and just that low self-worth and just all of that. And then I got to a point where it was like, no, you don't. No, you don't. Because if you had that shot and you gave it to them, one, they wouldn't appreciate it. And when you were talking about overcoming some things through gratification, being grateful of the things that you have and your blessings, well, that's part of it. And if I just give a shot to someone, guess what? They're not going to appreciate, for one, and two, they're not going to learn the lessons that they need to learn
sure.
along the way. And those lessons are valuable. They're priceless. There is no money in the world that can buy that kind of experience, knowledge, wisdom.
No.
It just can't. So every time you're going through something hard, remember that what's it teaching you? What are you learning through it? How are you becoming stronger? How's your relationship with yourself becoming stronger? Your relationship with other people, your relationship with God? How's it becoming stronger? Try not to look at as, oh, I can't believe something like this is happening to me again.
Yes.
Or I can't believe that, I step up and then all this stuff happens. Yes. Yes. A butterfly. You
Mhm.
know what I'm about to say? A caterpillar in a cocoon. When it's time to come out of that cocoon, you can't just cut it out. You've got to let it work its way out. Is it a challenge for it? Absolutely. But guess what happens if you cut it out? Its wings aren't strong and it can't fly. But because it has to fight its way out of the cocoon, the wings become strong and then it can fly. It's the same for us.
Yeah.
So Debbie, I see. Wow, we've got so much for you all. Like, make sure you come back. We are going to be live at 9 o'clock a.m. Eastern every Thursday on these platforms. So make sure that you come back. And if you have anything, any topics, any questions, anything you'd like us to discuss, please let us know.
Yes.
Either email us, text us, do a social media message, whatever it is, because we would love to hear from you. This is for you, not for us.
Right.
And we enjoy it. We absolutely enjoy it. So, Debbie, do you have any closing comments?
I just want to thank everybody, and also again, if you want to reach out to us, you can find us on all social media platforms. I'm Debbie D Waba on all social media, so
I
just reach
love when
out.
she says her name. Every time she says it, it's like, I almost want to do it with an accent. It's like, okay, calm down, Pam. I'm Coach Pamsky. It is a privilege to be here with you. Thank you for spending your time with us. And our hope is that what we said makes a difference in your life and that it helps move you forward.
Yeah.
Until then, it's time to thrive while alive. Bye bye.
Bye.
Hey, Debbie. I,
Maybe I don't know how to end it.
yeah, I'm like, okay. I'm looking at all the buttons and there's no, oh, I see it. All right. Bye bye.
Bye.